guys? Dr. Vic here, and excited to have you on the podcast listening to this amazing episode of what I'm going to share with you about what's going on in 2023, how you can really persevere through it, and so much more. We'll get into all those details. But before I do, I have a workshop coming up next week. It is January 25th. You can find the links and all the information in the show notes. It's going to be about burnout. Right. In our profession, there's an epidemic to this. 50% of chiropractors do not practice in the profession after 5 years. Some students have told me it has gone up to 60%, but I have no way to prove that. And burnout affects not only chiropractors, it affects business owners too. I coach entrepreneurs and business owners, and Forbes came out with an article saying 60% of leadership is burnt out. So there's this huge thing, but what it is what does burnout actually do and how does it affect us overall? I'll be diving into a lot of those things, but how that's messing with your bottom line. It's messing with your growth in your practice. It's messing with your adjustments and how well you can serve your patients. That's right. Everything comes from energy and attention. So it plays a huge role and bleeds into every fabric of our life. And I'm going to share with you 3 secrets of what you can do to break out of that and never have it again. And the reason why I'm very passionate about this is because I myself, for the first 5 years of my practice, I was burnt out every 4 to 6 months. I had the symptoms come up. I catch myself in a rut. It would take me a little bit of time to get up. I get excited. My energy's back. Boom, I'm going on fire. 2, 3, 4 months. All of a sudden, I start to go back downwards. I'm struggling. I feel like I'm walking through quicksand, just making it harder to get through. And then all of a sudden, here I am back at it again. And what puzzled me, and I'll talk about this in the workshop, is how disheartening it was for me, because I'm so passionate about chiropractic. I love chiropractic and for all that it does and what it serves humanity and so much more. And yet here I am being burned out. So I'll be sharing those secrets with you. Check out the link. It's in the show notes. Get registered. We only have 100 spots available. We have some awesome bonuses for those who sign up for the first 100, which is the only 100 we have available. But it will be some extra bonuses to help you really level up in 2023, because I'm on a mission to help chiropractors do that. That being said, why I want to talk about 2023 is, we're in a recession. Now, I know the definition has changed. Government, whoever that is, the powers that be, changed it around and said, no, July was not that. We didn't have 2 down GDP months, so we're not in a recession. So whatever the definition is, one thing we know for sure is inflation is still affecting many people. Okay. Right now, the big topic is eggs. And this is not the end. This is something that it's been waiting to happen. I'm waiting for beef to go up like crazy. I know it has, but grain-fed beef. I know I talked to farmers and been talking with them throughout this whole process. And I was like, inflation is going to be coming. When's that coming for you guys? And they tell us what their feed costs are. It's crazy. I get my raw food for my dog from a farm. Actually, for a chiropractor owns it, and she partnered with a farm nearby. And so it's one of those things that they held off for a while. And I was like, man, they should be raising the prices. I don't know why they're not yet. I was waiting for it. And then the time came, notice came out, and they almost doubled their pricing. And hey, it's part of the game. I get it. Everyone's having to bump everything up. It's just how it goes. You and your office should be doing the same thing if you're not. But one of the things, and the reason why I want to bring up this episode, and this is not doom and gloom. This is to inspire you and to elevate things in many different ways. And that is this. When inflation continues to rise, and you're going to see it affect many more things, eggs is just another factor. The food industry has been already, I'm very strict on my budget when it comes to food. And I can tell you right now, my food budget went up about 30-something%. So it's one of those things where I was getting frustrated being over, and I was like, but I got to get, this is the food I eat. And I was like, you know what? There's something wrong with this picture. And then I started to look at my prices, because I know what I get all the time. And I was like, yep, that's 28%. That's 40%. This is 35%. I'm like, man, everything's going up. Okay, it's fine. What do? You got to produce more. That's all. But the reason why I'm sharing this with you, if you're in practice, associate, you own your own practice and your own business and so forth, there's more competition to what people are going to spend now, right? And let's face it, you probably had this before. I know I've heard this many times before, where stuff hits the fan for a patient in their life, and they go, you know what? We have to cut chiropractic out. And that could be frustrating. She's like, oh my God, I'm helping. Look, all the things you've done, this and that. And we say, oh, they don't value it, or this or that, or this or that. can understand people are going to do what they think is best, and they're going to go into survival mode. So it's not something to be shocked about. It's not something you may hear this often. And can this be overcome? Well, it can in many ways. You have to, as the chiropractor, have to position yourself in a specific way and share a specific message. Now, whatever your ideal patient is and stuff like that, that's critical. You got to be addressing to them. So here's an example. When COVID hit, we took a 40% hit in our office. A lot of chiropractors did. 40% seemed like, from a lot of chiros I was talking to, that became kind of almost like the lower end of it, right? 30, 40%. I heard some as 80, 90, and some shut their office and some never opened them up again, which is sad. But it's one of those things where we bounced back. We were back to almost even the next month. The following month we were, and the following month after that we broke records. And we continued that growth wonderfully through COVID. COVID was as much as, if you're, look at what it did to economies and all this other stuff, it helped us in many ways. And we were prepared. The tools that we had, a lot of people had to shift to go to virtual talks and this and that, do these other things. We already had all that. So it made our life a lot easier. But the point I'm trying to make is this. We soared because we repositioned ourselves to understand our patients better. As a pediatric chiropractor, so I really focused more on the kiddos and families and the structure of the family and the stresses of what they're going to go through and how chiropractic could be an answer and a solution for them. So don't miss out on it. I would tell my patients, don't miss out on your adjustments. And if you feel like things are getting the worst best of you and you're feeling a little bit more stressed, a little more overwhelmed, a lot more racing thoughts, make an extra appointment. We'll evaluate to see if it's necessary, if we need to change things, because a lot of people are under a lot more stress. And what's amazing is that because we kept focusing on the stress side of things, because we kept sharing that message of how chiropractic can help them adapt better, and for what moms are going to go through and understand what they're going to go through, we spoke to their pain points, okay? Not physical pain, the actual stuff that they're going to have to go through emotionally and so forth. And because we did that, it helped us thrive. Chiropractic has always thrived during recessions. But this is, chiropractic has always thrived. I mean, you look at the Great Depression, it was one of the greatest times of all time for chiropractic. The amount of chiropractors who were practicing, the industry in itself, profession in itself, and so much more. Even the most millionaires that ever came out of the United States in the history of its existence has come through the Great Depression. Even through hard times, chiropractic thrives. Now, why is that? Who knows? But it just does. Why is it that though hard times, a lot of people become more rich in ways? A lot of people suffer, but there's also a lot of people that become rich or they become financially more abundant. And so like during the Great Recession, the last Great Recession we had, that's when I actually started my practice. Here's me, naive, ambitious, 2009, September, I graduated 2009. And a month and a half later, I found the place I was looking to. I had an investor and we were going to go through things, and I was all excited. And people were like, a lot of chiropractors are saying you have to know, look how things are tough. People can't afford things right now. It's better to work in groups. You can be a lot more longevity, all this stuff. And I was like, I'm going out and doing what I want to do. I don't care what that is. It's limiting beliefs, this and that. Well, mid-December, my investor decides to back out, and I already signed a lease. Thankfully, in the lease, it was in there that if we didn't agree to the build out, because they were covering a portion of it, that if we didn't find an agreement to things, that by this certain date, we can actually, the contract can be null and voided. And thank God that was in there. But here's me now, 4 or 5 months out of school, and yet I had like a little small, handful of patients that I'm serving out of my parents' house. But yet at the same token, I didn't have a practice yet. And when I started, April is when I became an independent contractor, and then that's where my journey began. And it's one of those things where I started during a recession, and people thought there's no way, but yet it worked out. It worked out handsomely. I practiced 6 months, and after those 6 months, I doubled that income from there, doubled the next year after, just about. And it was one of the things we kept growing. And it wasn't the fast growth I wanted, but it happened. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's 2 things I'm sharing here with you. I hope you're already catching them. The first one is you have to think on where your patients are. You got to know the people in your community and what are the things that they're going through. If you don't know these things, get involved in some groups, get involved in business associations, get involved in the chambers, and listen to what people are talking about. because they'll come up. You'll hear the pressing issues. There's probably some town groups, Facebook groups that you can join that you practice in, and you can just listen, take 10 minutes a day and go through things. You'll see what people talk about, and you can understand the vibe and where their stresses are. Because when you speak at a level to connect to their pain points and you're the solution for them, guess what? They're going to see chiropractic as something different than just headaches, back pain, neck pain, and so forth. And there's a whole craft in learning how to do that. But that's one of the big things to help you thrive in any industry. Again, I work with multitudes. I've served over 22 professions in my coaching career so far, 4 different countries. I can tell you what I'm sharing with you works across the board with everyone that I've ever worked with. This is universal information when it comes to business. Know their pain areas, explore it, understand it, bring it to the surface, have them feel it. And at the same token, if there's other things, you show them that also. Because as a chiropractor, your job is not to talk about what their current issue is. It's talking about what their issue is even deeper, helping them to understand that there's other stuff going on and educating them on that. That's what's going to have them commit and buy. But you have to understand where they're at. So this is not manipulation. It's just understanding that you can offer a service. You can invite them to a world that is completely different than what other people are going to experience. Just think about your patients. If you've been in practice for a couple of years, or if you've been in practice since COVID, or you practiced all through COVID, even before, you will see that those who stuck with you during the time of COVID weren't as stressed out as the ones who did not get care or came in short-term, left, and so forth, or new patients that were coming in that never been under care. Because stress is going to break people down. And there's a lot of things that who knows what 23 is going to bring. I think it's going to be a beautiful year. I think every year is going to be, actually. I don't really let the outside circumstances determine things, because everything's a lesson and everything we can grow from. But it's one of those things that when we look at the full picture, you have to understand your ideal patient, what is the pain points that they're dealing with and what they're going through. Okay. The second, as we talked about, earlier, is going to be your mindset and belief systems, right? What do you believe to be true? If you're a student just coming out, you're still in a bubble. I mean, I hate to say that, but there's a bubble that we come out of. I know. I thought the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you're in a bubble." I ain't no bubble. I'm going to go out there. This is what it is. Yeah, I missed the mark on some things in 2008, 2009. Didn't realize how that was going to impact a lot of other stuff because I was in school. I was in a bubble. I didn't know any different. I didn't know what the markets were going to be, how the real estate market was going to be massively affected, how these things were being. I mean, there was so much that went on, and it's one of those things I didn't know back then. Now I understand it, but it's one of those things that you're kind of in that bubble, not understanding the implications of it. And you can study these things. You can look online, but it's one of those things at the end of the day that having that mindset and belief to know that you can overcome those things regardless what shows up. And that's something that you can learn that. So if you're like, I don't have that, I freak out, I overthink, I don't know, this and that, I second guess, you can overcome all these things. Just like you can make adjustments and change neurology in somebody to create neuroplasticity, even their 80s, 90s, or 100s. You can do the same thing no matter how deep and hardcore that stuff has been built in your subconscious since you were a kid. So it just comes back to the reference of seeing your practice thrive during these times, understanding that it can and believing that it can. Okay. This is where times like this is when you really want to have good strategies and good systems built in. And I'm not just talking people coming into the office or the flow of your office when people get adjusted and how you take care of patients throughout the day. I'm talking factors of 8 to 9, 10 different ways of how you attract new patients in your office. I'm talking about 8, 9, 10 different ways of how you keep your retention high. I'm talking about methodologies and systems that you use to keep your conversions above 80%. These are the things that create long-term success. And when I work with clients, specifically chiropractic clients, one of the big things that's my focus is longevity. How are you going to create longevity in your business? So that way, when things like this happen, you're fine. If there was a lockdown that came and it messed up your numbers in your business, you're going to be fine because you built systems in place. This is why we were able to bounce back so quick from 40% hit. I mean, literally, it was a 40% hit. It was like 52% patient volume drop. And I was sitting there going, man, 1 week of that, this is great. Well, not a week, it was a month. We started to see it trickle off, more cancellations happening, more people saying they're going to stop care right now. They're a little concerned and nervous. And I was just like, well, I've been prepping this for 2 months. Educating them since February about COVID and fear and all this stuff, that I got to a point where I was like, well, my wife's like, are you concerned? Are you worried? And I was like, no, I think everything will be back to normal. And she's like, you mean life? I'm like, no, I just mean our office. I'm like, I as long as we can operate, we'll be fine. And we'll figure it out. And if we can't, we'll be fine too. But it'll be nicer if we can operate. Well, we were considered essential. We were able to practice. We had to follow all these procedures. We wasted more paper and more forms. I had to have a track record. It was a pain. My staff couldn't stand it, but hey, guess what? We were able to practice and serve our patients. But we kept focus on what people were going to go through and how chiropractic was going to be the answer. And we positioned ourselves in that way. And that's where all of a sudden more new patients were coming. Because why? What happens when you're stressed? You're going to have more aches and pains, microinflammation, all these other things are going to happen. Symptoms are going to show up. Since we focused on stress, and that was our conversation, and we focused on explaining consciousness and all those other things, people understood that more stress was not good for the body and it could impact other things. And a chiropractic allows them to adapt better. That's the main message of what I would share with people. And that resonated not only with new patients, but then old patients started to come back and said, I noticed a difference. This is what I love. This was like music to my ears. I noticed a difference not coming here for a month or two. Like the way I think, how my body feels, and everything else. Man, I'm so sorry I missed. And I'm like, don't worry about being sorry. I'm happy you're back. Let's get to work. Let's check you out. Let's get some scans really quick. I want to see what's happening. And then from there, if we have to give you a little extra frequencies just to help with that, if the scans show that you need that support, so be it. And I said, what we'll do is we'll measure again in 12 visits so that if I say this is what you need based on what I see in the scans, I'll check it again just to make sure, because some things can have a little bit of a lag, just to make sure that we're keeping things where it needs to be and we're holding you where you were. And if you are, then you're great. We'll just hold you back to where you were on your wellness plan, if they were wellness and so forth. These are principles that I would share and teach in my office to, show them that the scanners was telling it, not me. And that's where you can build that longevity. So again, coming back to what the two things is I wanted to share with you, is always going to come down to the second part is that mindset, that belief, mindset, how you see things. Do you let yourself get consumed by this? What are the worries and fears that are coming up? How much do you give attention to that? And really just shift your perspective to how you want to see your office. How do you want to be as the chiropractor? Who's that chiropractor of the goals you want to achieve? And how are you going to see that happen for you? Like, how do you see it? How do you feel it? How does that person think? How do they act? How do they move? You want to feel all those things and see that every single day when you're in your office currently. And that will be a game changer for you to get through these things. And know that there's always a storm. But a storm in nature never lasts forever. Nor does a sunny day always last forever. Or I should say sunny days. Even if you're in Arizona or Florida with 300 days of sun, there's still cloudy days. So the point I'm trying to make is, those are the two things that I would recommend to really focus on. It's going to really help you level up in so many ways. I'm kind of keeping it. If I get into specifics, I'm going to have to go down a little bit more of a rabbit hole. So I'm trying to keep this episode a little short, or shorter than keeping it short within 20 minutes. And so it's one of those things where if you enjoyed this, send me a message at drvic@empoweryourreality.com and let me know if you want more information. I'd be more than happy to create all parts series of episodes about this topic and so much more. But that's what I got for you guys. Please check out the workshop on burnout. I promise you it's going to be worth it, especially all the bonuses alone. I think I'm giving away like $300 worth of bonuses just to sign up. So check out the show notes. Click register for the workshop. I look forward to seeing you live. It is a live workshop, so I'll be live. The beauty about showing up live is that you can go ahead and we're going to have a Q&A session for about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the workshop, which a lot of people like. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Any other questions? I appreciate you as always. Please do me a favor, subscribe to the workshop episode. That way, to the podcast. So that way you can never miss another one. Second, if you've been enjoying this, please share a review. This really gets the message out there to really share business principles and concepts on practice and all these different things that we don't hear not enough, in my opinion, in the chiropractic profession. I'm not saying other people don't do it. It's just from my experience and my exposure and my circles of what I see out there when it comes to business advice and so forth, we don't really focus on the mindset side and things like that. I've seen it in the business world, entrepreneurial world. They don't do that as much. And I see it in the chiropractic. So this is where I'm bringing that forth. So if you like this, share a review. It gets it out there. And if you've been inspired by this episode, please do pay it forward by sharing with at least one person that you know could benefit. Appreciate it as always. I'll see you guys next week.